It all started on an ordinary Saturday afternoon. My dad, ever the handyman in his own mind, decided it was finally time to tackle the issue of our perpetually squeaky front door. You know the kind, the one that lets out a high-pitched wail every time someone even thinks about opening it. We were all gathered in the living room, lazily scrolling through our phones, while Dad rummaged through his toolbox with the determination of a man on a mission. However, somewhere between the WD-40 and the screwdriver, he had what he believed was a stroke of genius. He picked up his old acoustic guitar and declared, "Maybe the door just needs a little serenade." At first, we all chuckled, thinking it was just one of Dad's quirky jokes. But he was serious. He positioned himself in front of the door, strumming a few chords as he tuned the guitar. We watched, half amused and half bewildered, as he launched into a heartfelt rendition of Dust in the Wind. To our surprise, it wasn't long before the door seemed to respond, well, sort of. Instead of squeaking, it began to vibrate ever so slightly in time with the music. My brother, always the opportunist, joined in with a set of bongos he had unearthed from the basement, and before we knew it, Mom grabbed her tambourine and started shaking it with a rhythm that was, let's say, unique. The neighbors must have heard the commotion because soon enough, Mr. Johnson from next door showed up with his saxophone, and even Mrs. Chen from across the street brought over her violin. It was turning into a full-blown jam session right there in our entryway. The door, now an honorary band member, seemed to harmonize with its own creaky resonance, adding a peculiar charm to the ensemble. We were all laughing, playing, and somehow managing to keep a sort of rhythm, when our mailman, Pete, walked in to deliver a package. He paused, surveyed the scene with a bemused expression, and then, with the nonchalance only a mailman could muster, pulled out a harmonica from his pocket and joined right in. By the time we reached the crescendo, the door had stopped squeaking altogether, as if it had finally found its voice in our impromptu orchestra. We ended the session with a grand finale, and as the last notes faded, Dad stood up, took a bow, and said with a grin, "Well, who knew all it needed was a little tuning?" And just like that, we realized we had unwittingly turned a minor household annoyance into a legendary family story.